This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Franny's Pharmacy.
Now more than ever, it's important that our society focuses more on our mental and physical health. At Franny's Pharmacy, the team is committed to their community's need of being happy, healthy, and stress-free. Come learn how Franny's Pharmacy can assist you in a clean, professional environment with their expert bud tenders that are excited to educate you about the benefits of their lab-tested, DEA-certified CBD products. Franny's Pharmacy also offers wholesale and franchise opportunities. Visit their website at frannysPharmacy.com, and that's pharmacy with an F, and use the promo code CannaConnect10 for an exclusive Cannabinoid Connect discount. Again, that's Franny's Pharmacy with an F.com, and use the promo code CannaConnect10 for an exclusive Cannabinoid Connect discount. Franny's Pharmacy, putting the farm back into pharmacy. Ben, what's going on, man?
Hey, nice to see you, Kevin.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks for coming on today. Really excited to be talking to you, learning a little more about your background and your current role as VP of Innovation at Agrify. What I'm very interested in is your title, Ben, because I mean, innovation obviously is a buzzword that's commonly used within the technology industry. But it's important, right? Because innovation's happening all around us. And so, yeah, the fact that you are sitting in a position at Agrify where you're leading the charge when it comes to innovation is really interesting. And I can't wait to get into that. Before we do, however, I know that you founded Pure Pressure, which was acquired by Agrify. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your professional background, your journey starting Pure Pressure, and eventually what led you to now being the VP of Innovation within the Agrify Corporation?
Yeah, happily. So my background was in mechanical engineering, and I've always had a passion for cannabis. Been a cannabis user for some time now, most of my life, or most of my adult life, I should say. And I kind of out of school took a traditional route and went into a manufacturing career, and worked actually in industrial street lighting, oddly enough, and did that for 5 years, and kind of refined some of my skills in machine design there, but really had an interest for bringing products and solutions to the market, just in general, regardless of what market it was. That was an interesting thing for me. And then one day I kind of crossed paths with an old friend of mine, Josh Rutherford, that I grew up with. And he and I were having a beer at his brother's place, and he was talking to me about solventless extraction and rosin presses. And at the time I was running a consulting company for machine design. And so we started playing around with that and made a rosin press and prototyped it. And we got 6 times the yield of what we had seen with other machines that we were kind of tinkering around with.
What year was that, Ben, when you guys built that?
Yeah, that was actually in 2015.
Wow. Okay. I asked because I had the owner of Sweet Sensi on, and he mentioned that I don't know if it was during the 2015s, it's early 2010s, where it was just kind of like an online community where people were just trying to build their own rosin presses, and there were forums and like different things like that. So I'm wondering if you're part of that group. His name's Greg Autry. Does that name sound familiar?
I wasn't. That'd be interesting to go dig up, but I think I came in at the tail end of that, where there was absolutely just a lot of repurposing going on and home building. And so, yeah, we wanted to come to the market with something different and bring the first real purpose-built rosin press that was designed to extract oils from the cannabis plant. And so, I sat at a coffee shop with a little SolidWorks license and came up with the Pikes Peak press. And we tinkered with that a little bit and said, okay, well, this is really something. This product works. There's more of a need than just Josh, who is an owner of Cushmasters. So he kind of has his own lab in Boulder, Colorado, and is our customer in a sense. And so we've always had this great partnership because he, in a sense, is the customer that I'm trying to service, right? And so we worked together and said, well, maybe we could sell these. And so it started out with actually just some renderings that I did in SolidWorks. And then we put them on Instagram, and we sold 10 presses on Instagram. Then we had to build them. So we were like, all right, we got to do this now. And it was great. It was awesome. It was such a fun experience. But we
sell through Instagram, man, that's a huge accomplishment. I mean, like, those aren't cheap machines, right? But it showed that there was probably a need for that type of innovation at the time.
And that's right. People were looking for something that hadn't been created yet, but they kind of had an idea of what they wanted. And so I think I kind of filled that need just in the nick of time. And we brought something that was reliable. That was the other thing, is that there's just so many of these hodgepodge machines out there that you didn't know if it was going to power up every morning. And
right.
For somebody that's got to rely on it for production's sake, that just isn't an option. So we wanted to come to the market with something a little bit different. And it was just a natural, organic growth into the company that it became. We started off, and it was just Josh and I, and we built those first 10 presses. We had a little help here and there, but I bought a welder, and we started wiring things up, and it was pretty interesting. So we used that money to build the next 10, and so on and so forth. So it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, no, and that's super interesting. And I love how you guys just took the initiative to, roll up your sleeves and be like, all right, we're doing this. There's a need. We weren't anticipating this type of growth so fast as an early startup, but all right, here we go. Right. And for those listening, just so that they have a basic understanding, if they're not familiar with what a rosin press is, do you want to go ahead and explain that to them?
Yeah. So a rosin press, in this sense, is basically a heated press that we're using to extract the cannabis oils from the plant without chemicals or solvents. We're just using heat to liquefy the oils in the plant, and then pressure to mobilize them. And so we're typically stuffing any number of different types of cannabis material inside of a filter sock, and then pressing it within that filter sock. And so when we press it, that sock is giving us filtration, and we're able to retain elements that we don't necessarily want in our extract, and we're able to express everything that we do.
That's a perfect way to put it, of course. Yeah. And you know what I found really fascinating the first time I actually saw this process firsthand was how scientific it can get, right? I mean, from the type of strain you're using and applying that to the appropriate heat to get the kind of yield that you're wanting, and so on. I mean, you can really, really dive deep into the details there.
Yeah, so it was actually a lot of fun, because when we first started with the rosin press, it was really simple. We started taking dry flower, and we'd put it in a filter bag, and we'd press it, and we'd get some mediocre oil.
Right.
And over time, we figured out, well, all right, well, maybe we can do better than this. And so we started hydrating our flower, and we figured out that, well, if the flower has at least 60% humidity, then it's not going to absorb the oil when we liquefy it. So our yields went up. Okay, well, that's good, but the quality was still so-so. But then we started messing around with making ice water hash, and basically doing a pre-separation process and then pressing that. And with ice water extraction, it opened up a whole new world, because now instead of dealing with dry flower, we could deal with fresh frozen flower. And fresh frozen flower is flower that's cut down, bagged, and frozen, typically within about a 30-minute process. And that's going to preserve the terpenes. And it's like the same as, capturing fresh fruit and freezing it right away to make a smoothie later on. If you were to dry out the strawberries, you could also make a smoothie out of dry strawberries, but it's very much not going to be the same.
Right.
A lot of the qualities of that are different, right? So what we capture and what a lot of the people in the market are looking for as a consumer, we have more of in fresh frozen flower. And so we expanded into this world of ice water extraction, where we take fresh frozen flower, we dump it into a bath of ice water, and we're actually kind of taking advantage of a few different things here. So the water wants to soak into the bud, the flower, and make it flexible and supple and able to bend and move, while at the temperature of ice water, the resin glands are actually freezing and becoming super brittle and rigid. And so when we start to agitate this mixture, those resin glands will snap off, and because they're more dense than water, they'll sink, and we can filter them out of the water. And so essentially what we're doing is we're microscopically plucking all of the little apples from the tree, if you will, thinking of the cannabis flower as the apple tree. And so what that allows us to do is then grab all of the resin glands, where all of these cannabinoids and terpenes and all the things that we're really after in the plant live in these resin glands. And so we're able to capture those whole without disrupting them. Then we put them through a freeze dryer to remove any residual moisture, and then we can put it in the press, and we can make really, really high quality concentrates, equal to, if not better than, concentrates that you can make with any solvent extraction method. And so it's pretty interesting how we can kind of get there from a totally different perspective, a totally different way and approach, but end up in a similar area. And so it's been a lot of fun to explore all these different processes, and also now we're understanding that we're really just at the tip of the iceberg for what's to come with innovation. And so it's a lot of fun for me to get involved with all these different processes now that we've integrated all as one company. But that's something we can get into a little bit more later. But when it comes to solventless and rosin pressing, it's pretty interesting because it's more of a mechanical method of extraction, right? And so we're really dependent on how that plant was grown and how the structure of those trichomes have formed, because we're not able to just utilize a solvent to dissolve and attack all of the trichomes, regardless of how they were grown and what shape they are.
Right. No, it is a fascinating process, and I appreciate you walking us through it. And at a high level like that, it's very easy to comprehend when you put it in those terms. And to wrap up this part of the conversation, because I did kind of pull you off on your journey, because I know that was kind of the first step in where you're at in your current professional career, but the overall solventless category and the extraction industry as a whole. I mean, are you seeing that those are kind of the primary ways in which operators are solvently extracting the terpenes and the cannabinoids from the plant? Or is there other ways that are becoming more known through innovation? I mean, what are you seeing in terms of trends?
Yeah, so in terms of trends, I mean, I would say that still it really depends on what products we're talking about. So if I'm going to make an edible with no flavor, no cannabis flavor at all, I want to get there by way of making a distillate. There's no terpenes involved. And so to get to that product, you know, I could get there any number of ways, but that's typically a byproduct of some other primary methods of extraction. So if we kind of think about this from like a standpoint of, you know, which end products we're looking at, and if we're looking at just like raw concentrates that are dabbable or smokable, vaporable, that type of thing, you know, the majority of what's on the shelves right now is going to be produced with a hydrocarbon. Okay. And that's where you're going to get your live resins and that type of stuff. And then solventless is going to be right now, it's typically a smaller portion representing kind of the higher quality and a higher price point typically.
Gotcha.
So we're taking up a smaller piece of the marketplace. But, you know, as I was saying before, the plant, there's so many variations and not just within strain to strain, but you can even have variations across the room within one strain as you're growing. And so the variations that you can see and what is effective to extract solventlessly and what's not, you don't always have that choice of what you have available to you as an extractor. And so we believe firmly that the most profitable and the most successful labs are those that utilize multiple extraction methods, and they're more versatile in their approaches. And so, you know, when the material comes through that does really well with ice water extraction, then you absolutely should wash it and run it that way, because you're going to make more money with that material selling it at a high dollar value to the dispensary. Gotcha. So you're filling a niche, you're expanding your product volume and what you're offering, and you're satisfying the customers. So then maybe you have some material that comes through that doesn't necessarily wash that well, but it still could be extremely high quality material. It still could do really, really well as a live resin. And in that case, we want to use a hydrocarbon extraction and use butane or propane or something like that. And so, you know, when we first started out, it was more like, I want one way to do it, and I just want to do that for everything. And that's pretty understandable from a business standpoint, because it's a lot easier to digest.
Yeah, it's from an operational standpoint, it's like,
that's
you know
great.
What to expect. Yeah. But in terms of growth and diversity and right, like, yeah, you're not really getting
exactly. And the fact that we're dealing with a plant, it's a live thing, and we have to evolve with it. And there isn't one method that you can use that's going to give you every single output. So, you know, the best operators kind of look at the scenario and adapt to that. So if you're in a super low income area, maybe coming out with a line of super high dollar solventless concentrates isn't going to be the most successful thing in that area. But you know, maybe in an affluent area, you've got solventless cartridges selling for $80 and you can't keep it on the shelf. Okay. Right. Where they're collecting dust in another part of town. You have to look at your market, look at what the customer wants, what they're willing to pay, what kind of products they're looking for. And then you got to supply those to your customers. You got to listen to them. It's not, you can't push it down their throats. And so we firmly believe that there is this symbiosis that happens when you kind of like look inward and really figure out what people want, listen to them, and then we can help provide the solutions to get you to that.
It can be difficult though, right? Like if the consumer like say someone's listening to this and they're like, you know what, I want solventless products. Like unless they're doing an immense amount of research and looking up the company and their process, like how can they tell from packaging? And the second part to that question is like, you see a lot within hemp products, like full spectrum, right? And there's industry operators that take not offense, but they take issue to that because if they're talking what you're talking and totally solventless, where they're doing the rosin press, or they're doing the what did you call it, the water, the ice
Ice
bath.
water.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like that, like if they're not doing that, it's not full spectrum. And really, I mean, literally, would it be? Or I mean, technically.
I suppose so. When I think about full spectrum, I guess it comes from the standpoint of, are we removing anything, or are we getting all of the cannabinoids that were originally grown within the plant? And so yeah, you can have a full spectrum concentrate without using ice water extraction. But your question is great. How does the customer know what they're getting? And also, it's there's a difference between rosin and resin and all these little nomenclature things. And honestly, that is one of the biggest challenges, is that you've got this huge knowledge gap from the consumer to the manufacturer, and the person in between oftentimes is a bud tender that doesn't have any training from the manufacturer, or has very little training. They might have training from their supervisors, but there isn't a really direct link there. So a lot of times you've got uneducated customers being sold products by uneducated salespeople. And what the statistics show, in my opinion, is that you've got a lot of things that follow the trends of what you hear when you're in the dispensary. And so when you're in the dispensary and someone that's never smoked cannabis before, or maybe they have, and but they're not highly educated, they don't know exactly what they want, but they just say, well, I just want something strong. And then the bud tender says, okay, well, this joint here, this is the highest concentration THC that I've got. And they say, great, I'll take 3. And then we look at the statistics and we see that things that have super high potencies sell the best. And it's because people just say, like, well, I don't know, I guess I want something strong. And the guy says, well, this is I looked at the labels of all of our joints, and this one is 0.4% higher THC than the rest of them. What the hell does that mean to anybody? Nothing. And,
right.
it's
like the alcohol example. Like you're not going in and buying Everclear. You're not asking for the most.
Yes, that's the perfect example. You don't go into the liquor store and only read the percentage on the bottle and be like, I've got it, Everclear, it's the best alcohol ever made. Like, no, it's not.
You're not sipping on that at night. Yeah.
You can cook an egg with that raw, so that's perfect analogy. And the same thing happens in the dispensary. And so it comes back to educating, and really, we like to do it through YouTube and through white papers and all these different avenues, but blogs, articles, whatever it is. But we got to connect with the customer and educate them on what these different products are and what the pros and cons of are each, so that they can make an educated decision on what they want and how to find it. And I think that some of our initiatives really should be more guided towards working with the dispensaries themselves, so that the bud tenders can be more educated than they are.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's kind of a common theme that I hear when guests come on, is that there is this education gap, at every level, right? And it's not the industry's fault. I mean, we're scrappy. We're trying to figure this out as we go, with little to no help from, the state and local governments. So, but education is important, and it's good that, of course, Agrify is putting that front and center. And that's actually a good segue, because I want to talk about now, like you being the VP of innovation, what are some of the current innovations that are happening within Agrify? I mean, what projects are you guys working on? Products, a little snippet there, and then also, maybe some other trends that you're seeing more broadly within the industry when it comes to technology or innovation.
Yeah. So, well, it's been a lot of fun for me, because I came from this niche of solventless, and now I'm able to broaden my horizons here and spread my wings a little bit and learn about hydrocarbon and ethanol and CO2 and all these different methods and distillation, post-processing, and learn about all not just the processes, but kind of the history behind them and the evolution of where they were. And it's been this epic battle, it seems like, between solventless and solvent extracts forever. But now I think that people are kind of learning that there is this symbiosis, like I was saying before, that you can really find between the two. And so that's been fun, and learning all of the different technologies has been great. And that's actually where we have a lot of new innovations right now, actually, within Agrify. So we're launching a new series of extractors, and started with the PX5 series. And these are really cool because they're hydrocarbon extractors, but they're using what we've done is we've eliminated a pump. So these things are running, I'm losing the word right now, but sorry, it'll come back to me. But anyway, the PX5 series is really cool because we don't have a pump in the system. And so we're able to just automatically use the vapor pressures and the different temperatures and stuff to move from one tank to the next. And that's pretty interesting because as we remove these elements from the hazardous environment, we're able to actually speed up the process and remove hazardous elements. Passive is the word I was struggling for. So it's a completely passive system.
Gotcha.
We're not, yeah. But anyway, that's just one of many things. We've got an awesome team. I've got like 8 guys under me right now that we're all working on developing new products. And we've got this great list that we're chipping away at. Not a lot that I like to talk about too early, but I can say that, while we're innovating within kind of the bounds of what the industry is used to, we're also working on some stuff that nobody's ever seen before. And like I said, we're at the tip of the iceberg. In my opinion, you've got the next 30 years of development where we're just going to see game changer after game changer. We're partnered with a company right now called Boulder Creek Technologies that has just an incredible technology that's called vapor static extraction. And they've got a patented technology. And it's really amazing. They're able to take dry flower and input it into this machine, and it vaporizes the cannabinoids and then condenses the vapor back into an oil, all in less than 1 second.
Wow.
And so,
awesome.
Yeah, we're one of the only distributors of that product. And so there's just so many cool technologies that are coming out that are going to be able to fit really specific needs, and also be able to build and scale certain product lines to meet demands as globalization and legalization kind of spread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can tell, like, obviously from what you've said, there's a lot of internal innovation that you can't really get into detail about within Agrify, but also, like, from just a quick press release kind of search and just seeing what the company's been doing. I mean, I read a little bit about Agrify University, your total turnkey solution program, Cannabis 13. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. Do you want to touch on any of those real quick?
Yeah, so kind of what the whole vision here is with Agrify and why they acquired these extraction companies and bring this whole thing together is, to start at the grow, they've got the VFU. So the idea with the VFU is to create a microclimate where you can control a grow very aggressively and create the optimal environment where we're balancing that game between stress and a healthy environment, because just like building a bodybuilder, you don't get jacked taking your workout easy. And just that's the same thing with cannabis. When we're trying to make really high quality cannabis with high concentrations, we need to stress the plant to get it to really bulk up and grow those really big resin glands. And so it's this really fine balance. And so with the VFUs, we're trying to really dial in by strain, particular grow path and a grow profile, if you will, that we can follow with that plant. And then we want to take that and continue that into the extraction process, so that we can say, okay, well, we're growing this strain with the intention of extracting it with this method so that we can make this product. And if we can go from tip to tail like that and really provide the recipes and the pathway all the way through, then we're really answering a lot of the problems for our customer, and we're optimizing the efficiency and closing that loop, so that when we see a change on the front end, we can see how that affects it on the back end. And that's kind of in a nutshell what the big picture is. And so part of my job is to really capture all of these different extraction methods from all different aspects and figure out how to get them to talk together. And we're creating a system so that our customer can essentially have one central place that they can operate their lab, regardless of what type of equipment they're using.
A central end-to-end system, yeah, that tracks and monitors the entire process. I mean, that makes so much sense. I hear over and over so many times that it seems like a very piecemealed process right now, right? You've got your cultivator, then there's a handoff from the cultivator to the extraction lab, and then the extraction lab does their thing and then gets onto the retailer and then eventually on the shelves. And so being able to have that data, historic data over time by plant profile, is really incredible, and seems like it would be a very valuable database to have, right?
That's right. And on top of that too, the customer really, their experience right now is tough because, let's say you're making a vaporizer pen, and in order to do that, let's say you wanted to make one solventlessly, you've got an ice water extraction device involved, you got a filtration device, you've got a freeze dryer, you've got a rosin press, you've got a homogenizer, an oven, a cart filler, and some packaging equipment. And a lot of times each one of those systems might be sold by a completely different company. So you have one issue, or you think you have one issue, and you're trying to talk through it with one company, and they're like, oh, sorry, you just crossed over into this guy's territory. That's not my shit. I don't have to deal with that anymore. Right. Sorry. So you're like, oh no. And then you got to hang up and call the next guy. And that's terrible for everybody. So when we can bring it all in-house and you can get on the phone with one person and they're like, all right, well, let's talk about it. No, I don't think it's that. Oh, it might be this. Let's dive into that a little bit more. And we can help really build solutions and figure things out and tailor not just the equipment, but kind of the whole process to help the customer create what they really care about, which is the end product, the SKU. So, if we provide a piecemeal service and solution and equipment, then that's exactly what the customer experiences, and that's how they struggle with their business. So we have to solve those pain points for them. That's our job.
Right. Makes sense. Well, Ben, to wrap up, my last question to you is one that I'm sure you never get, and that is future innovations and trends that you see coming our way, and maybe in the
Yeah.
years to come, or, what kind of trends are you seeing in terms of innovation?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm seeing a lot of automation, and that obviously makes sense, but it's not necessarily the easiest thing in a lot of these. So, for example, when we're doing the hydrocarbon extraction process, there's very distinct things that happen that are visual cues that the operator's looking for in order for them to know, okay, I need to open this valve, or I need to move on to this next thing. I need to try and crank this up. And so capturing those visual cues, and finding ways to use technology and sensors to take the guessing and checking element out of it and put science back into it. Because at first everybody calls extraction an art, and then it's a science, and then it has to go through this whole evolution. And so our job is to kind of break through that and sift through the mist, and find ways to automate these areas where people say that it can't be done. And so I think that that's what we're going to start to see more of, is these really unique, really specific solutions to cannabis that only can happen after this amount of time in an industry.
That's very exciting, and I look forward to seeing all those innovations take place over the years. And it sounds like Agrify is really busy working on those, with you being the VP of innovation and at the helm of that. So, Ben, really appreciate your time, man. Enjoyed your insights. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with that's top of mind before we go here?
I'll just say, it's been an honor, and reach out if you guys have any questions, or if you're interested in any products, or honestly, if you just want to figure out how to get to an end product and you're not quite sure how to do it. We've got people here waiting to answer the phones to help figure this out for you. This is what our job is, and it's what we're passionate about. So, we'd love to help fix your problems if you let us give you a try.
Awesome. And if they did want to reach out, where can they find y'all's website and social media channels to learn more?
Yeah, so we're working on making this a little more homogenized and simple. But if you reach out to anyone at any of our 4 extraction companies, whether that's Pure Pressure, Precision Extraction, Cascade Sciences, or Lab Society, or at Agrify, you can go to agrify.com. You'll get it to any one of the 5 websites, and we're here to help.
Awesome. Ben, thank you so much again, man. Let's have you back on very soon as Agrify continues to blaze the trails in the innovation space.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kevin. It's been great.
Absolutely. Yes. And thank you all for listening. Bye.